Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting-edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And we're going to welcome everybody to Broadcast Team Alpha, interesting possibilities tonight. Cutting-edge conversation. Before Augie tells you about our very interesting guest, I want to thank you guys. I mean, it's going to be Thanksgiving here in 2 days in the United States, but I'm thankful every week. I'm thankful for you being here. I'm thankful for the support, thankful for the chat room and the lively conversations and the comments, thankful for the super chats, and just thankful that we have this moment weekly, where we come together and we're in, by virtue of the internet, we're in each other's presence. And, presence is just everything, even if it's by the computer. So thanks, everybody. You can contact us at broadcastteamalpha@gmail.com. You can come join us on Sunday. I almost forgot the Mastermind Connection, an amazing group of people. You might be one of them. Come together on Sunday, 2:00 Eastern. And we join our thoughts. We join our thoughts and our intention fueled with feeling to put it out into the quantum realm, out to the universe, for the most benevolent and wonderful purposes. We've helped reverse weather patterns. Of course, we weren't the only ones doing it. Peace during the elections in the United States, that actually happened. What was the likelihood of that? And so many other things, a lot of to do with this stuff, people healing from that, having to do with that virus. What is the impact we made? We don't know, but we trust that it does make an impact, and we do get confirmation at times. So come join us. You can send an email to the mastermindconnection@gmail.com. We'll send you some information. We'll send you the Zoom link for Sunday. You can come and hang out, have fun with us, and see if it's for you, see if it's a match for your energy. All right, Augie, I am so excited to chat with our guest tonight. Can you tell us about George?
Oh, yes, this is going to be fun. I found out about him actually quite a while ago, and then I forgot about it. And then I got introduced to him again, and I started to look at what he has done, and it's phenomenal. See, we have George Mitrovic with us, and he has written 75 books. I got to say that again, 75 books. I mean, that is just phenomenal. And these are interesting books about wormholes through space and time, UFO, humanoids, and strange phenomena, Lakesmonsters, amazing encounters, and that is with monsters, strange mythology, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, and amazing encounters with UFOs, spontaneous combustion, amazing Bigfoot encounters. And and you will find all those on Amazon. That is at amazon.com.
Amazing.
And think of it. There may be some Christmas presents hiding in those pages among those 75 books.
That's right.
That's phenomenal. And George lives in Australia. So if he look at his watch right now, he shows that it is noon tomorrow.
He's a
so we have another time traveler with us. So welcome to the show, George.
Welcome, George. Yay.
Hello, Aggie. I show my rudeness. Hello, Aggie.
You didn't know you're a time traveler, did you?
We're all time travelers. We're all dimension travelers.
That's right.
Like that.
The basic assumption is we're assuming we're already here. But that's for another episode.
So we were talking. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, we were talking on the phone here yesterday, and we got into just about every corner of the universe about some of the stuff you had written about. And there's one thing on my mind that I've been wondering about and I've been kind of looking into, and it's been fascinating in fact, both for Nori and I, and that's the Sasquatch or Bigfoot or the Yeti.
Oh, yeah,
that too. And there's so many names for this guy. Could we talk about that first? Because you've written very extensively on that.
I've written about 3,000 pages in 5 volumes for North America alone. I am currently working simultaneously whilst writing a few other books. A history of Bigfoot from the mid-1600s worldwide outside of North America. That hopefully in a few months, but I've got a few other books on UFOs, humanoids and strange monsters and strange phenomena to go through first. I want to finish that set so that I end up writing on every single strange phenomena, UFO and humanoid, interesting UFO ones, contacts, etc., not just a thing in the sky. No, thank you. I want that with meat on it, not just the bones. And there's so much of it. But our Sasquatch or Yeti or whatever, just out of curiosity, the first mention in modern literature, I won't need that anyway. The first mention in modern literature was for many years in 1800 in Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. 100 k's where I live, because I live outside of the city in a remote village, which I like. A 2-hour commute to work, but that's life. And a yowie was seen, which is a tall, hairy, thundering creature that the local Aborigines are terrified of. And it was recorded by early colonists and early explorers when Australia was still basically a prison colony. So they're not a new idea. They're not a new concept. Like the Jersey Devil has reports going back to the 17th century. And not all of them have a flying dog-like thing with wings, as exemplified in the 1909 sightings, 1909, 1910 Jersey Devil sightings. There were Bigfoot sightings amongst them. I started writing research because A, I don't like mysteries. B, I don't like questions. It's sort of an opposition of terms. I like to solve mysteries. I like to see common themes. And I found, and I'll just quickly start off with this. Many years ago, I was looking at old reports of things and I saw this group of people on this hill were meeting Orthon from Venus, apparently. Came down, blonde hair, typical 1950s Venusian, very fashionable then. Okay, whatever. Later, I came across another report, other side of the hill. Hunters find a Bigfoot, which they don't shoot, and it runs away after much yelling and screaming. So, okay, just a coincidence. Years later, I come across another report in the same area in a lake. The local lake monster appears, and then, like they all do, disappears. Turn the switch on, turn the switch off, monster there, monster gone, in most cases. And I thought, is there a pattern to all of this? Is this beyond possibility? So I started amassing all the data on Earth that I could find at the time. I've got a 2-story library. And this is 50 years ago, when I was still a child. And many years later, we found that these things work periodically. There is a repetition pattern in time and space for many phenomena, not all. But that's not what we're talking about today. This is just one of the series of events on that phenomena. Otherwise, you'll be turning me off in an hour and I'll still be talking about the first thing. I want to start off with Sasquatch, and I want to read this to you. So find it again. Come on, where are you? Oh, there you are. This Sasquatch was called Whistling Paddy. And I'm going to read a first-person event. It's 1955. And the lady is writing it many, many years later. 1955, an apparent pleasant age in North America, unless you were living illiterate, poor and starving in the backwoods of Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky. But you forget about them. They just become delightful characters in period dramas. Near Lawrenceburg in Lawrence County, Tennessee in 1955. This was 53 years ago. It was in Etheridge, Tennessee. I don't remember how to get back to the old farm place. But even if I did, it is not the same anymore. So much land has been cleared. Hello all. I'm a 56-year-old woman, but has never gave a second thought to the life of what people call a Bigfoot. I knew him as Whistling Paddy as a child. That is what my grandparents and all the neighbours called him. Our neighbours were few and far between, but every one of them knew the Whistling Paddy. That is what they called him. I myself can remember his screaming and whistling sounds as a child. We lived in the deep woods in Etheridge, Tennessee, with no electricity or indoor plumbing. He was always around and we were used to his sounds, and he came for scraps at night. He did not eat any meat, only peelings from potatoes and other veg. He or she was white with red eyes, like as I know, some folks are called albino, I guess. My grandparents were not learned people. They could not read or write. They had a sign with an X, but they knew he was real. They did not fear him. They saw him or her lots of times and thought it was okay. They called it him, so I guess it was a male. My aunt, who lived about a mile away, opened her back door one night to throw out her dishwater and threw it on Paddy because he was standing at the back door. It did not scare her because she was used to him. Although she had 9 children, she went and got some potatoes and gave him, for she said he was hungry. This Paddy was about 7 to 8 feet tall and did not ever hurt anyone. I'd like to know if anyone else has ever heard one called a Whistling Paddy, because that was what we called him when I was a small child growing up in those woods. And we did not fear him, but we had to come inside right before dark because my mom could say, Paddy is out here and we can't trust him. We don't know who he or she is. If anyone else ever knew if a Bigfoot was called by the name of Whistling Paddy, I would like to know. My grandparents were Indian and I knew many things, but were not smart when it came to the real world. They knew how to get by with 10 children and live a good life in the woods, and how spider webs packed into a wound would stop bleeding. They knew, as I did, Paddy was real. He would tear the bark off the trees that my young uncles had tree houses built in. My uncles are still alive. They could tell more than me. Everyone who lived in this area knew Paddy. He always came at dusky dark, never bright daylight. It was hardwood forest woods all around. There was whiskey stills in the woods. My grandpa had one also. Always as a child, neighbours would come sometimes and tell about the Paddy who was at their house or in the woods behind their house. The other night they gave him food too. Even if it was potato peelings, he would take them. We were poor people and cooked our peelings for the family to eat, but my mum always made sure we had a full belly but saved something for Paddy. I love the elegance and simplicity of this report, the honesty. There's nothing made up. There's nothing fanciful. It gives great credence in the retelling. I've also left the grammar and spelling basically intact, which is pretty amazing. It is a sighting of originality and spirit. This is just an innocent person remembering an event that has stayed there since 1955.
So did he or she whistle? Is that why
Yes.
he whistled?
He whistled. There are quite a few humanoid reports in North America of whistling big feet or Bigfoot.
Really?
I've had arguments over whether it's big feet or Bigfoot, but it could be either. I'm not going to argue about it. They're like potato. Who cares? Which brings us to our next statement. I mean, I love that story. To me, it's a real sighting.
I like that story. Mm-hmm.
It's a great story. I was discussing with a person a couple of years ago, once again, stating the obvious. I've read so many Bigfoot reports that they just come streaming out of my left ear as they come into my right ear, if it makes any sense. And I thought, there's something that no one has ever bothered to mention in every single Bigfoot report I have ever seen or read. And I thought, it's so obvious. So many times you have reports of young fellas out driving, It's late at night. They could have had a few drinks. They might not have had a few drinks. They've had to stop on the side of the road in the woods and they have to have a whiz. Put it euphemistically. And no one thinks much of that, except for the Bigfoot that's screaming, yelling, and throwing branches and rocks at them. No one ever bothered to say that this was unusual either. In any
Was
of
he
these
offended?
books.
Was he offended?
No, it's standard anthropoid ape behavior. The boys were whizzing on his territory.
Oh,
Monkeys use urine as territory markers.
yes.
So therefore, these young apes, the Bigfoot, in this case, were going on his territory. He wasn't going to have any of it. And this is such a common recurring theme in Bigfoot sightings, especially on the West Coast. Now watch out for a whiz, and who knows who you might beat. It also occurs when people are courting, to use that wonderful American term again. The coyness is amazing. We know what they do. It's more catching than courting. And so many times again, the local Bigfoot goes totally ballistic, jumping up, yelling, staring, whatever, and sometimes just watching, which once again is normal simian behavior. Humans do it, apes do it, monkeys do it. We're all the same family. And I was discussing with Augie last night about different colours of Bigfoot. White ones, brown ones, beige ones, you name it. They're all designed to blend into their territory. And I brought up a concept that no one else had bothered to write about either, which is jackrabbits in winter can change their hair colour to white. So can Arctic foxes. So can other animals. Why can't a Bigfoot?
Absolutely. Camouflage
And he's
coloring.
perfectly camouflaged again. He is a master, he, she, or it. I'll use the generic he. I'm not being sexist. I'm not being belittling to the female Bigfoot, of which there are a lot of reports as well.
Really?
It's a generic term, not meant to be offensive. He, she, or it, let's see, I'm already being politically correct again, has seen so much happen in his woods as the trees are torn down, as everything is destroyed, as hunters have come in. Being as smart as we are, if we were let loose in the bush on our own with no tools, probably smarter actually, from his level of experience in that situation. He knows how to hide. He knows how to blend.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to spot.
Mm.
And that's worldwide, not just in North America.
Right.
That's the most common type of Bigfoot. And they stink.
I would imagine.
And if you've been out in the bush for a few weeks without having a shower, I can assure you. I've been out in the deserts in Australia for up to a week without a shower. And holy mother of God, I smell like a dozen polecats. He's living in the bush with no showers.
Yeah.
It would smell like a medieval market town.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Because we forget we're only a relatively clean society since the mid-19th century. Before that, we're all pretty great.
Yeah. And then we have there in the mounds across America, North America, we have skeletons that is dug out of there, some 7, 8, or some of 9 foot tall. And how do, let's say, Bigfoot relate to the giants in America that we talk about? When we see the skeleton, in fact, we saw a mummified one that looked about 9 foot tall. It looked just like a human, maybe a little smaller head, but it was also perfect like a human. No fur on.
People don't realize that the Adena people, originally from the St. Lawrence Seaway, were 6.5 foot to 7 foot tall. Yeah. And that's just standard anthropological fact that nobody likes talking about. Right. And they moved south. A lot of the mounds were created by Adena people. And that's the name given to them, I think, because the first major remains of them were on a plantation called Adena. We don't really know who they were. They travelled south and southwest. a long time ago in North America. They built cities like Cahokia. People ask me about cities in North America, and I say, you've got so many cities in North America and highways and structures. Cahokia is almost the size of the Great Pyramid. It's on the other side of the river, the eastern side of the river from St. Louis. And it's still there, a huge mound, originally surrounded by other mounds, which are technically pyramids. Let's just call them pyramids. I call them North American pyramid builders.
Really?
Not mound builders. Might have been a mound to the farmers who arrived. These were pyramidal structures, which have been eroded or, unfortunately, in many cases, ploughed into the earth. And so many times we find oversized bodies in them. I've got Atlas of Strange Archaeology of North America has got them all in county by county, state by state order, which is always good. So you can just go to your county or go to your state and see what's there, if there's anything there. So much more convenient than I've read 300 pages of this thing and I can't find anything because my books don't have atlases.
Where do you think they come from? Any thought?
They came from the northwest. No, they came from the northeast and the northwest because the Amerindians also state the large giants came from the north and from the east, and they killed them all, the red-headed giants.
Yeah.
You've got the Lovelock Cave skulls. You've got things that, I'm sorry, these that do not belong to modern archaeology, so we'll not discuss them. We've got skeletons around in the Lovelock area, which is still there. We have the famous Smithsonian collection of hidden artifacts.
Yeah.
Or probably pulverized artifacts, if you really want to get down to it. What their origin is, we're not sure, but geographically speaking, they could have only come from one direction originally. And it's not the Bering Strait. I've put forward a theory a little while ago that when world sea levels were 300 foot lower, it was far easier to come from East Asia via the Aleutians.
Yeah.
You missed out on all the snow and ice. Why would you go travelling through mile after mile after mile of snow and ice? Go the other way. Follow the Japan current, it's heading in the right direction, and skip. I mean, everyone had boats. Every culture had boats.
Yeah.
That's how they got to Australia. That's how they colonised the world. Eventually, boat traffic became ultimate traffic for everybody. It's easy. You float it. You chuck an obelisk on it. You carry cargo on it. But where the Adena came is still a mystery. And if there is a relationship between Bigfoot and the Adena cultures, well, they're not described as hairy. So we're a simultaneous culture. I can call them a culture. Anything that thinks and breathes and lives as a unit is a culture.
Yeah. What do you think about, there is another theory that somebody else have aired, and that is that when they come from the north, that may be far north, that could be even from the interior of the earth through the opening at the North Pole. I know this is a weird one, but there is.
I'm not really an admiral. I'm not an Admiral Byrd follower.
Oh, okay.
But if you allow for the fact we're talking about pre-cataclysmic periods, the Great Tilt around 10 to 12,000 years ago, of which I've written several books on, exhaustive books on, all in chronological order, of course, makes it easier. The Earth then, around about the time of the Alaroid oscillation, and that period based on the plant name, which I can't remember, the driest period, the Earth had tilted 27.5 degrees. Yeah. If there was a hole at the North Pole then, it would have been at the side, not at the north. And this is evidenced by mammoths. And everyone thinks, here we are, mammoths wandering around tundra. Tundra is basically crap about that high of moss and miniature plants that can't grow any further. They can't eat it, and they don't live on snow. And the most distinguishing feature about the North American mammoth and mastodon is their lips. They have prehensile lips.
Really?
Yes, for eating things off trees.
Fascinating.
African elephants have a shovel-like structure to their mouth. Once again, obvious things. And then you tie in what they eat off these trees. Birch leaves, oak leaves, deciduous forest berries and leaves. At that time, they lived in a deciduous forest savanna area, 28.5 degrees down. Then we had the Hudson Bay impact, around 9 to 10,000 BC, and the weather always stays where it is. So it was still going to be frozen up here immediately with the poor mammoths in it and their trees, oddly enough. Thousands and thousands and thousands of trees and mud and crushed animals as if landslides had destroyed them. They didn't live in the tundra. But meanwhile, all the ice has moved and it's being hit by cosmic bodies, comets, meteorites, take your pick. And it's melting so fast it raises world sea levels 300 to 400 feet. This is all normal geology.
Yeah.
I mean, these days we whinge about a rise of 5 mils. Excuse me, what's 5 mils? My bath can do better than that. We're talking about 300 to 400 feet in a matter of a few years. And poor mammoths being destroyed. So if there was a hole up there, then it should have been here. And if it was here, that's in the Atlantic Ocean, so all the water would go down into it. So
George, can we just
yes.
I'm sorry, can we go
Yeah.
back for a minute? Because there's a question in the chat room. So Shady D, one of our favorite people here, said everybody has a different opinion of this, but what is the correlation between UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings? Any?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, yes. Because there are 3 types of Bigfoot sighting. The anthropoid ape explanation I've used, the Amerindian Wendigo explanation that they come in and out of dimensions as spirits of the ancestors or as individual entities to create havoc or to create revenge or to help. And number 3. Number 3 gets laughed at, but there are too many of them. Uniontown.
I see we are 1 minute away from the bottom of the hour here, where we're going to run that message. And let's talk a little bit about that, because Sasquatch or Bigfoot has been seen during those sightings of flying discs. So there is, there you go. There's got to be a connection here. So we would love to hear about that
when we come back.
Yeah. Well, wait for the ad break.
Yeah, so Mac, let's do that video, and then you let us know when we're back on, because I can't see it.
I knew that there was a need because my father had a need. And if my father had a need, then how many other people have a need?
The key to Tyler's coffee is the roasting process. Because Mother Nature makes the coffee bean. We can only work with the processing.
We knew we wanted to go USDA certified organic. So we wanted to be the purest and cleanest coffee in the world. We had to source stuff from Africa, we had to source stuff from Brazil, we had to source stuff from Chile, and we put it through our proprietary Z-roasting processor. So what that really truly means to you is that the coffee doesn't have inflammatory properties in it. I'm dedicated to serving 50 million Americans that suffer from stomach-related modalities, and also the millions of other people that just deserve a great tasting cup of coffee that's healthy and safe.
chat room happening tonight. So where did we leave off? I think we're about to get into something a little juicy here.
Mm-hmm. I
Let
think
me read
so.
something.
Yes.
Here's one I prepared earlier. One of, would you believe it? I know, I'll read the report first. I know, boring old farts reading again. That's fine. At Uniontown near Greensburg in Fayette County, Pennsylvania, on the 25th of October, 1973 at 9 p.m. Stephen Pulaski and 15 people saw a hovering red ball of light which landed in a field on the Pulaski farm. Stephen was 6'2" tall, 22 years old, and curious about the odd light, though none of the witnesses were frightened of it. Stephen decided to drive up into the field for a better look. A neighbour's 10-year-old twins went with him and he took a .30-06 rifle with him, as you do. The ball of light was the size of a barn and dome-shaped. It made a noise like a lawnmower. The headlights began to dim, and we'll meet this lots of time as well, and at the same time the red light moved. It came directly onto the field. The red ball then became white. It was 100 foot in diameter. The three of them got out of a truck. One of the boys then saw a pair of 8-foot-tall humanoids with glowing green eyes. They were covered in grey hair, and one was 7 foot tall, and the other was 8 foot tall. Stephen used the 6 foot tall fence for comparison. Stephen fired his gun at them. There was also a smell of burning rubber and sulphur. The creatures whined together and were immune to gunfire, and eventually the smell of sulphur filled the air. The witnesses became physically distressed, lightheaded, and had difficulty breathing. Then Stephen temporarily went animal before passing out exhausted after running around the field growling as well as attacking 2 investigating witnesses. It was not the first time for either combination, especially in Pennsylvania. Incidentally, on the 26th of November, the following day, a fireball had crashed into the same township and hit a gasoline line. And also, that month, a man was out walking his dog when he saw a Bigfoot at night and fired 6 rounds at it with his revolver, whereupon it vanished. He could hear the sounds of something running away but could not see it. Later, he saw it again and shot it with a rifle, and this time it screamed from shock or pain. It was, too, a tall, hairy, ape-like creature with glowing red eyes, and I'd like to say that was the only report of its time in existence. No. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. Even in France in 1954, there are several of hairy creatures coming out of UFOs in the great UFO flap in 1954. In 1909 in Wales, an airship landed and giant people with huge fur coats and fur headpieces came out of it. Remember, our observer is doing the witnessing. He has to use the culture of his time to describe it. He has to use the technology of his time to put it within parameters of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So many of these things well before 1976 when Chewbacca finally arrived in Star Wars. Because we've got to remember we are in a multiverse. A huge multiverse intersected by wormholes everywhere. Voila, but we'll discuss that in another episode.
Yeah, when you mentioned the multiverse, that brings up a totally different arena that I would love to touch on. You know, we were even just kind of sniffing at the holographic universe even when we were talking yesterday. And could you speak a little bit on this? Because what do you think we really are and what is it around us?
Have we got several lifetimes to begin with? Or then again, maybe that conjecture's wrong. It could be right. Some say the entire multiverse has been created by me, or you, or or no one, or no thing. But what I know about it, I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm not good at maths, but I'm a hyper mathematician, which sounds strange. It has to be logical, even though we have to find a new theory of logic to contain it. So many times with things like UFOs and hairy hominoids and even Lakesmonsters and sea monsters, going back to the beginning of our conversation, they kept occurring at the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
But not continuously. It would be boing, 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 and the places are gradually moving. The times are moving. So I decided many years ago I'd start plotting them all. It's not an easy thing to plot, all of these things. Over time, over place, we ended up with that. The squibble on this side is North America. This is the coast of Europe. There were more, but I had the shits with them one day and burnt them, as you do, because they became so frustrating. I met a physicist in 1994, and I said, I've got all these notes. They appear to make patterns. Do they? It will solve an equation. If there is no pattern to any of this, and it's all totally random, it's just this. It's lunatic asylum stuff. It's imagination. It is random. If there are patterns and it forms mathematical procedures, there is nothing random about it.
That's right.
Because once it becomes a sine wave, which is how you measure repetitions, it's repeatable. That's what sine waves are, a repeatable explanation of a mathematical progression. And then when you put them all together, you have that running down through time. That's just a progression of things. I went to this physicist, and it took 12 weeks using an ancient computer in 1994 to load all of my database, thousands and thousands and thousands of them, into a progression. And what we discovered was all of these events occur in periodicities very similar to the periodicities of the major planets. And remember, we're using very old computer systems that are almost incapable of doing anything. We found one, there was a 512-year period. And we deduced that there was actually a trans-Plutonian planet there, which was a little discovery, which cleared up a few astronomical problems. And then they kept appearing at the same rough rates of other planets, down to Jupiter. After that, it became static. If these are predictable, we can, yes, predict where they will occur. Could that help explain why so many ancient cultures, the Mayas being the most prominent of them, kept moving their healing centers and pyramids and cities every 56 years? And this also occurred worldwide. 56 years. The passage of Venus. Tied in with the passage of Venus, at the end of the 56 years, they would look to the skies to see if anything was coming. They would extinguish all the flames, and they would spend all night praying that the world wasn't going to be destroyed. And these were large, organized, intelligent societies with writing, with art, with literature, with culture. Okay, they sacrificed people. Who didn't in those days? It was just the way they did things, but we can't use that as an assumption of hatred or negativity or primitiveness. Their work was superb. Their astronomy beat ours hands down to 6 decimal places for the length of the year. They had a zero-based decimal system. We didn't have that from the apparent civilized West. But they had these apparent primitives who moved their temples and cities every 56 years.
When is the next 56 years coming up?
I think 2013 was the last one, but they're not really that important anymore because it's not a worldwide thing anymore. They were remembering a memory of what actually happened 10,000 years ago and 6,000 years ago and 4,200 years ago and 1,550 to 1,650 years ago. Sorry, I'm grabbing files. I've written about all of these meteoric and cometary impacts with the Earth and their relationship to civilizations before. how they all tie in, especially that mid-second millennium BC, the time of the great Artan disk started monotheism and created most of our religions. The Jews were the only ones who kept a monotheistic cult after it left. Everybody else went back to normal.
So this is actually kind of like a cyclical event. Would that
Yes.
also maybe mean that at times when it is at the top or maybe at the bottom, that other civilizations have a quicker and better access to our civilization or our universe?
Yes, or other outer civilizations. I believe, and this is after, I don't know, I started in 1970, but these recurring paths with the correct computer power could go down to the spot across the room from you and when it's going to occur. One of the major reasons a lot of cultures built these places was for healing.
Yeah.
Imagine, and we're running low, I'll run a quick supposition past you. Once again, probably to be brought out later. There are 4 states of matter. And people say, what? Who? He's gone off again. Solid. Very little electron, neutron movement. That's why it's a solid. It gets agitated a bit. Look, it's a liquid. It gets agitated amazingly. Holy Mother of God, it's a gas. And what's this one? We weren't taught about this one at school. This is a plasma state. You find it in the middle of a nuclear explosion. It's where the magnetic bonding of the electron is gone. It is total free matter. And then it continues to accelerate until it becomes, what would I describe it? The quasar vacuum. The quasar vacuum is a theoretical quantum physics postulate where everything is in the same place at once, in the same dimension. It's a movement between dimensions. It's a movement where, in the case of these sightings of Bigfoots and UFOs and UFO hominoids and things like that, where the observer comes across, it's like a quantum leap moving to this now, across a point where several of these particular sine waves are wrapping together. Their brain cannot comprehend what is happening, so the protective feature of the brain that creates religion and mythology and everything says, I will create an image here to satisfy me, to keep me safe, or I will not be able to live with this. So the hunter sees the Bigfoot. Fish of vehicle, see, the usual water monster, here they are, barn. UFO people see people in a variety of forms and shapes, greys, Venusians, you name it, and UFOs. And we think, yeah, it's all solved. It's a gateway. They've all come through and they're going back again. It's an old theory. Even Desmond Leslie in the 60s brought in the concept of a demon universe. All these demons travel between the dimensions on UFOs. It was brought up later in the Goblin universe idea. But how much reality is there to this? These things leave footprints. They leave burn marks. They can attack people. They can be hurt by people. Sometimes they actually do hit them occasionally, but not very often. There can be solid physical interaction. It's not just a hologram. It's bang, or it's dragged onto the ship for a wee medical probe. But you have examples like Ariel in Zimbabwe, in Africa. I can't remember the year now. It was a school sighting, ARIEL, if you want to hunt it up. Years later, the researcher came back and asked for children. They're all primary age children. Draw what you saw. Draw what you saw.
Yep, I remember that.
They all draw something different. Because the brain is interpreting what it's seeing. Some saw yellow UFOs, green ones, 2 windows, 3 windows, different humanoids. How much of it is actually reality? How much of it is actually illusion? And I'll add the paranoid part of it too. How much of it is somebody arriving, something arriving, and finding that the best camouflage is to be created by the observer. So, you know, Catholics are seeing Virgin Marys in trees. Why they like being in trees, I've got no idea, but they do it in almost every Virgin Mary site. Look, shepherds, Virgin Mary in tree, build a basilica. Excuse me? I've seen photos of Fatima in 1914, October 13th, if you remember rightly. And if I'm wrong, don't correct me. I still know more than most of you. And I'll still write more than most of you, like I think I already have. Except for Barbara Cartland. She's written 566 books and made a lot of money. But that's different. She writes crap. What if?
If you're talking, you are kind of maybe a hobby mathematician or studied it quite a bit. Let me get your opinion of the holographic universe, because there is a physicist, James Gates, and he says that if we look deep in the equations explaining the fabric of space, we find computer language. We did not put it there. It's too organized, too symmetrical to happen by accidents. There is computer language, which means there is a computer program. Now, it's not one like us, but it's a different one, much more elaborate. How does that interact, do you think, with our reality? Are we a computer program, or is it just something that, okay, I'm losing myself here. I'm handing it to you.
Or is it just an explanation in modern terms of what the phenomena appears to be? Because remember, with the UFOs, etc., and a good example of that is 1897, hundreds of airship sightings starting in California, 1896 November, heading across, hitting the Midwest and Chicago about March, April 97, hitting the Panhandle in Texas in a great curve in June, July 97. People were seeing airships with big wings flapping, airships with big propellers on both ends, lots of different shaped airships making weird noises, dropping potatoes. Yes, it's written there. Coming down and asking for people to get water for them. Meeting humanoids who said it was a Westinghouse inverter that powered the thing. But the problem is with these airships is you can build one if you tried and it wouldn't fly. But it was one step ahead of the technology at the time. Later, the ghost rockets and rockets of 1920s and 30s, Europe, were one step ahead again in technology. Is it the human mind, imagination, creating the step forward? Because we're always, as we said in the beginning of the interview, are we constantly moving forwards? Are we constantly reaching forwards? And this is an outward expression of our wishes, our dreams, our hopes, and our ability to create technology in our mind and then replicate it. So we've gone full circle in the interview. Now you can wake up, please. It's fine.
So that reaches,
go through.
That reaches into the concept of the mind-created universe then.
It could be my mind. God help you. It could be yours. Once again, we're back at the beginning of the interview. It's all cycling. It's all moving. Nothing stays still. Like them. Nothing stays still. I got into an argument once years ago at a convention, and they all looked at me as if I was an alien because I was not sticking to the standard books on what an ET is supposed to be or a monster is supposed to be, as we've discussed now. And they said you can spend the rest of your life sitting in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, and you'd probably get very, very bored because its time has passed. It's not going to be activated now. Its period is over. The technology is gone. It's the same with a lot of other sites. But they said, we've got these geodesic domes we've worked out. And they said, they're static. Nothing in the multiverse is static.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is constant movement. And that's why I converted it to a sine wave running on a flat surface through time. That shows the movement as it spirals down. Once again, the spiral, the sine wave. The spiral is a caducus. The serpents around the post of healing again, but also of a race used in other mythology called the serpent people or Pleiadians. See, we can continue going on so many different directions.
Fascinating. Yeah. Fascinating.
Now you have also written about.
Both need a life. You'll probably need a lie down. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've written about wormholes and concepts like that can maybe connect this area of space through the wormhole to another area of time and space.
Yes.
Speak just a little bit, because now NASA is starting to talk about maybe we can use the wormhole to travel across the galaxy. Now, finding your way back, good luck with that, but I don't know. What do you think of that?
These are wormholes, little wormholes and big wormholes. They're all wormholes. They're like platforms at a train station. You've got to get to the right one, and then you've got to find the right one to get back. The simplest analogy of a wormhole, I haven't got it here. You cut a piece of paper into a long strip. You turn it on itself and paste and staple it back together. It becomes a Möbius strip. Yeah. We've focused all of our traveling through the multiverse on, we go from here to here. It takes a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of time when this is a one-dimensional object. You go through the middle because both sides are the same side. That's a wormhole. A wormhole is where there is no time or space. There is no great traveling through a wormhole. It's here and there through the quasar vacuum at the same time, which is what we discussed earlier. But people regard me as a little too radical. I was told by a major Australian science program that we can't publish any of your work and we can't talk about any of your work because you're not an accredited scientist that's been peer reviewed. And they said all the major discoveries were made by non-peer reviewed, non-accredited scientists. Yes, we know that, but we can't do that now. And I gave them my blessings and went. I'm not shy in that regard.
Yeah. And I hear also that there is a wormhole right about a little bit west of Sedona, Arizona, where there are some really strange experiences people are having out in the desert, in that they see strange creatures, they see things coming through and going back into nothingness. And this, they're saying, is probably because it's some type of either wormhole or vortex of some type.
That wormhole at Sedona has been around since the mid-60s.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, it's all in one of my books. But I think it's actually moving.
Oh.
They're always moving and shrinking and expanding and moving. We have a fluctuating, moving universe. And the Sedona one's a brilliant one. But A, is it more powerful? Or B, are the strengths of the visitors to it seeking psychic knowledge attracting more powerful people? You've got both occurring at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it is now a centre for a lot of psychic and healing activity. But you'll find there are other ones as well. As I said before, with Virgin Marys in trees, they have become healing centers.
Yeah.
It was up to the interpretation by the witnesses. But, little shepherds in the middle of nowhere. One day there's nothing here. Next, 6 months later, you got photographs of all these people staring at the heavens and bathed in the most amazing glow. I know what that is. That is energy from the heavens. If you want to call it a UFO or a psychic phenomenon or not, but it was filmed, it was photographed, and it was there. I'd like to have known if anyone did cancer research on it afterwards.
Right.
Because you get a lot of clear conjunctivitis from UFO sightings, you get a lot of burning, you get lots of strange side effects.
Absolutely. And I got a question
all together. It's quite amazing.
I got a question for you, though. It's one of my favorite questions when we are on this subject. If you had a UFO land in your backyard, the door came open, and someone standing in the doorway, kind of looking like you, and did like this, would you get into the ship with him?
I'll stand in front of the door and ask what he wants.
Yeah.
And see if he wants to come out to see me, and then we can work out what we're doing. He, she, or it.
I'm
I'll
with
say,
you on that one.
honey, your mother's here.
Yeah, I see we are coming down towards the end here, but take a few minutes here and talk about your books and where we can get in touch with you and where they can find the books. And if somebody wants to talk to you, how do they get a hold of you and so on?
I'm very hard to get hold of because I'm so damn busy, I don't really have the time for anything. But if they want to go to Amazon, they'll see all of my books and billions of questions in them and lots of answers. And all on Kindle, if you don't like hardcover books, but most people still like hardcover, and so I do. Well, paperback, actually. Yes, I like having my books. I mean, I love them.
Yeah.
And that's just some of them. And they're all mine. I gave birth to a lot of them. And years ago, if it wasn't for Amazon, I'll give them a plug now, not one of them would be published. Not one of them would have been progressed on. They can try and contact me on Facebook, but I don't really respond to people. Actually, I don't most times. Because I just don't have the time to discuss things. I don't have the time because I work full time, I write full time, and I make dinner in between, which helps, but that's a bit of time off.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed that I can still create a new book every 3 to 4 weeks.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
But I've got a huge database it's taken me years and years to create.
I bet.
It's just the way my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
What is
I'll see me on
next?
more programs like this.
Yes.
What is the next book that you're putting out?
After this series I'm doing at the moment around the world, I want to do a big one on the world history of Bigfoot. But not counting North America, it's been done. I want to collate all the information which I already have, but edit it, refine it, and put it in one book. So people once again say, oh, look, it's Czechoslovakia. Do we have a Bigfoot here? Unfortunately not, but there are other places that do. More so than others, but still around the world. As I said earlier, 1800 in Sydney, one of the oldest Bigfoot reports out. Legitimate Bigfoot reports, it was documented. I like documents. I like people to put their name down on a book or in a document and say, yes, this is it. As I write in all of my books, your nana might have seen something in the creek, down the street, in the air, sometime many years ago, and I can't use it because I don't know where it is or was, and I don't know when it was. So as far as the grand scheme of things, it's totally useless to me, no matter if it's got the most glowing description you can find of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's not the phenomenon that's important. It's everything occurring around it and creating it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And
George, you're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh no, thank both of you for having me on.
Aw, you
And
have
for
to come
those of
back.
you out there, for those of you out there that haven't been there yet, go to Amazon and have a look at George Mitrovic. 75 books, and I think they're all there. And I'll tell you, there is Christmas presents hiding in that that compilation.
Something for
And they're
everybody.
easy to read.
Awesome.
Yeah.
They're not written for intellectuals, they're written for normal people.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.